In progress.
Submission is a holy act of an empowered and a sovereign woman, and it is not to be confused with passivity, collapse, or feminine fawning. The moment that you are, as a woman, are trying to be chosen, trying to be safe, trying to be loved, then you are out of the act of holy submission and you have slipped into feminine fawning. And that is a clear distinction. Hi, my name is Jessica, and I am a coach for women who are actively rejecting woke culture, who are actively rejecting this idea of toxic masculinity and tearing down the patriarchy. I support women who are here to walk in truth, walk in love, and are here restoring their rightful feminine, rising hand in hand alongside good men and leaving a legacy of love through their family line. Today, in anticipation of my upcoming 10-day immersion, Cherished, I'm going to be sharing on one of my favorite topics, submission. This is a hot topic, especially in the polarity, the feminine, masculine space. And a lot of what I have seen and been exposed to online, I actually disagree with, and I think can be downright dangerous for a lot of women because it's lacking nuance, okay? So we can't discuss the whole breadth and depth of submission in this one video, but I just want to pick up one very important thread. And that thread is that as women, we will never be able to submit to a man who we perceive is not stronger than us, okay? And this is rightful because it would be absolute madness, insanity, and be unsafe for us as a woman if we submitted to a man who we didn't perceive was stronger than us and thus able to hold us and thus able to create a container of safety for us. And what I see is a lot of this very surface level advice about women being the ones who submit and men are the ones who lead can really derail women and lead them on what I would even call a dangerous path where they're actually not in the holy act of submission, but it's being confused into what is feminine fawning and collapse. Okay. So let's just wind up for a second before I go into that statement that as a woman, we will never be able to submit to a man who we perceive is not stronger than us. We're going to break that down into two key kind of facets so you can understand if you are having problem with submission or submission like does something in your body and psyche that is like a no, and it did that for me for many, many years. It can be a very charged word and charged frequency because of our current culture and because of how we've been taught to be empowered as women is to be anti-submission, anti-surrender, not only towards men, but also towards God. We don't want to submit. We want to be the creator. We want to be the head of our lives. We want to be like we know best, okay? But that is a whole discussion for behind closed doors at another time. So I think if you are here and you're listening to this, there is a deep desire and yearning in you to be led by a healthy, embodied masculine man. And that desire is rightful. That is how we were all encoded as women under God ordained design to be in relationship, to be in union and unity with our beloved. And so when I use that term beloved, I'm talking about the man that you are in partnership with, either marriage or union, which might not be a technical marriage, but you have committed your life to each other. There is a strong commitment. Now, we can talk about submission outside of this context in another time and space, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to talk about it in the context of your romantic and intimate relationship. And of course, then your dating and courtship life if you are not yet in union or marriage, because this is important. What I see, because of this strong desire that is rightful, that we want this healthy embodied masculine man to lead, that there can be sometimes a premature submission or surrender or devotion to a man who has not yet committed and claimed us. And that is not putting us in the rightful design and how that dynamic was meant to be of the feminine follower and the male leader. Okay. So that's a little side note. So if we know that it is the highest expression, if we know it is God's ordained design for a woman, or as it says in the Bible, a wife to submit to a husband, a woman submits to man that has claimed, chosen, and committed to her, then why is it so jarring for us? And why do so many of us struggle with this? And it comes back to that statement that I shared at the start, that we as women cannot submit to a man that we perceive, important word here, perceive to not be as strong as us. And we live in a culture and a time where many women have developed a very strong personality, which can often be birthed from maladaptive survival mechanisms. And because of this, many women can be looking out at the men around them, or even looking at their beloved and saying, consciously or unconsciously, he's not as strong as me. And if that thought, if that belief is alive in your being, in your psyche, you are going to have resistance from some or many parts of you in submission. And although you want him to lead, there's going to be another part working in opposition to that. And when there's different parts, because there are different parts of us that live inside of us, and a lot of them are unconscious until we bring them to the light. If there's any subconscious, unconscious parts that are in resistance to submission, that you cannot fulfill that destiny of the union template, which is an embodied, healthy, masculine man who has chosen and claimed you in union and marriage to lead. Okay. So the two reasons why that we can struggle with women as submitting, and it's very important to take stock of yourself, the man in front of you, or if you're dating, like the men that are coming into your sphere and experience, to understand, okay, what is it that may be creating this resistance, whether it's conscious or unconscious. My puppy just knocked over my drink bottle. I don't know if you can hear him behind me chewing on a pig's ear. It's like having a toddler, but nowhere near as intense. Okay. So these two reasons. The first one is that you do not perceive this man to be stronger than you, and therefore he's not safe to hold the space for you. So you don't want to submit, which is rightful. Like, why would we? But this can be rooted in not the reality. The reality is that man might actually be a really good, embodied, healthy, masculine man, and he might be stronger than you, but your perception of it is skewed because of, let's use the words, past wounding, past trauma, or a maladaptive kind of identity that you have built, that you are a very strong woman. Okay. And this has been one of my maladaptive coping strategies and identities that I developed in childhood. So before I developed this, I was actually a very soft and sweet and quite shy little girl. And then through my life experience, something happened that in my psyche, it felt like the safest thing for me to do was adopt this kind of warrior, strong persona. And I felt like I needed to have my own back. And many people that know me will describe me as a very strong woman. And I am. But some of that strength and some of my patterns of operating have been built and had been built on a house of cards, which was an adaptation, a survival mechanism that I adopted to feel safe. So I adopted this strong woman. I have my own back, self-sufficiency, hyper independence. Like I can deal with whatever is going to come at me. And therefore, I perceive when I'm in this faulty identity that is built off maladaptation, that I am like exceptionally strong. And if I'm in that identity, then I'm looking out into the men in the world. And I can tell you through that lens of perception, which is not truth, it's my lens of perception that I built as an adaptive survival mechanism. She's looking out into the world going, there's not many men who are stronger than me. There's not many humans who are stronger than me because she is an absolute powerhouse warrior. And that part of me isn't wrong. It isn't bad. It was something that I perceived in my unconscious mind that I had to do to survive and to adapt to survive, which took me away from my natural and native essence of whom I am as a woman. And it worked for a time. So it's not bad. It's just something that happened automatically in my psyche as when I'm perceiving what's going on around me. But it got to the point where I realized that actually, hey, this isn't serving me and it's not my deepest truth and it's not rooted in love and it's not actually my beloved identity, which is like, for me, I would express it. It's not my daughter of a king. It's not I'm a child of God. Because when we're in that claimed identity of being a daughter of a king and a child of God, we don't need these protective, adaptive mechanisms. We live in truth and walk as love. And we already know that we are safe, chosen, cherished. We are already the beloved. So we dissolve, dismantle, let go of these false paradigms and these false identities, okay? So I wanted to share that story because if you can relate to that, you may be finding it very hard to submit to men, or if you're in dating and courtship, you're like, I can't find any man that's stronger than me. Like, I need a man who's so, so strong. But if you're holding the benchmark off a maladaptive place, you're setting yourself up and every man for failure. And whatever relationship that you start to create from that place is going to be from a place that's not rooted in pure love, okay? And just say you have created a relationship from that place that you're like, oh my gosh, I can so relate to this identity. I have this strong woman. I've been this strong woman. And, I know lots of single mamas have this. And again, it's not bad. It's not wrong. But there usually comes a point in our life where we assess and we can say, hey, this is no longer serving me and I no longer need this. And so I can choose to let this go with love. And our soul and God is calling us to restore our rightful God ordained design as woman, as our unique expression, okay? So if you're seeing that in your current dynamic that's playing out in your romantic life, and even if you have a partner, this is an invitation to start to explore, who am I beyond that? And is this man or the men that are coming in courtship or the man that I'm in relationship with, is he actually not stronger than me? Or am I on a faulty foundation of this identity that was built out of a trauma response or an adaptation? And am I benchmarking him against this? And if that's the case, you know what the really beautiful and powerful thing is? take your gaze off him, because often we're like, we need him to be stronger. We need him to be more of this. We need him to be more embodied. He needs to go to the masculinity accounts, all of this stuff. It's like, well, no, I'm going to take sovereign self-responsibility for my part, because we co-create relationships between us, the man, and God. So it's a trinity, as it is, and I'm going to work between me and God to restore who I truly am as a woman and see what happens as I let go and dissolve this strong woman paradigm. And then does my perception shift? Because you can't actually assess with a clear mind, steady eyes, steady heart, if this man is worthy of your submission, if he is safe for your submission, if you are holding an ineffective paradigm and operating from an ineffective identity, okay? So that's the first thing that you need to think about and assess. And if you're like, okay, that's not me, that doesn't feel like me, then the other part of this equation, if you are just like, submission really jars me, or I'm finding it hard to let my man lead, even though I truly want him to lead, it's like, well, okay, then is it in you? Or is it actually rightful that the man that you have chosen at this time is unable to provide this safety that you require to submit to him? Because submission is a holy, holy act of devotion and should not be given willy-nilly. Like, you shouldn't be in courtship and dating someone a couple of months and be like, I'm going to be this submitted, like, woman who just like, because that's what the polarity people say. Like, no, that is fawning. That is like, you've given yourself too soon, okay? So if you discern actually, and I do invite you to bring this into like a group container like Cherish that I'm running, or work with a coach or a mentor, because sometimes it can be hard to see our own patterns, to see our own things that are in our unconscious, because it's the unconscious mind's job to hide this from us. So by nature, it's very hard for us to illuminate this for ourselves. And we might get a little raindrop here and there and go, oh. And if you do have those raindrops, bring it in. And if there's something, I would love to support you on this, because it is very dear to my heart. I walk this journey myself, so I get it, and there's no judgment ever. But if you're assessing, okay, I don't think I'm holding things within my own psyche and body and system, but this man that I've chosen, and that word is important, because you are choosing to be in whatever relationship dynamic you're in, whether it is courtship, dating, situationship, play buddies, boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage. You are choosing and participating in that. No one's forcing you to be there. If you are there, okay, why am I here with a man who I don't feel safe enough to surrender into? And maybe you're not fully committed to this man yet, so it's rightful that you're not in submission. But if you can't see and feel that, yeah, I can see myself in submission, excuse me, I can see myself fulfilling my destiny, my God ordained design in unity and union template, that is, decreed that wife is to respect and submit to her husband. If you're like, I can't do that with this man, if you're deeply honest with yourself, then you need to ask, what are you doing here with this man, firstly? Because it's not fair to either of you. If he isn't a man that you highly respect, if he isn't a man that you can see yourself exalting and submitting to, then he may not be your man. Or, we take a step back as well, because this is nuanced, and this is why it's important to work on this personally and not just take this as blanket advice. You have to wash it through your experience now and your bigger picture, okay? Because sometimes right now, at this point in time, maybe your husband is struggling. Maybe he's going through a season of depression. Maybe he's, lost his job, something, he's got an injury, and you're like, I'm finding it hard to feel the respect that I once did or submit to him. That is a very different scenario to, hey, I'm dating a new guy or I've been in a relationship for 3 months and yeah, I don't think I've chosen the right person. And the more I get to know him, the more it's not aligned. And again, this doesn't mean this man is bad. It doesn't mean he is wrong. It doesn't mean he's not masculine, but there are different energies that work together, okay? And there are different value sets. It's so complex who we are attracted to and how we can make it work with someone. So none of this is making anybody wrong. It's not about shaming the men here, like, oh, you're not man enough, you're not masculine enough, because that doesn't help anyone. And as a woman who has been told way too many times by coaches, like, oh, you're too masculine, that actually was really, really damaging for my heart and my psyche when they didn't understand actually this woman is acting from a maladaptive protection mechanism that was developed in childhood because I didn't feel safe. Like when we just label that as, oh, she's too masculine, like it's so jarring because I'm not too masculine. I've never been too masculine. I've only just adapted to do what was rightful for me to feel safe and survive. So no woman is too masculine. You were made in God's perfect design. You are a feminine woman and nobody can take that from you. Nobody can change it. But there are times that you may be operating, possibly for decades, like I was, outside of your natural and native design, but there was a good reason why your psyche chose that, okay? And we can let go of the shame and blame around that. So we need to also hold that with our men. We also need to say, like, let go of calling men not too masculine. If a man doesn't feel like he is safe enough for you, if you don't feel like you're able to surrender to him, and that you don't have to make him wrong, you don't have to make him bad. And this is what respect is about. And we're going into these more nuanced places of what respect is and isn't in Cherish, because respecting a man is not just like this tick box thing we do. It's not just to the man that we really like, but it's like respecting a man means that maybe I'm in courtship with a man and I think he's just like too soft or whatever. But it's like instead of tearing him down, instead of like, making him bad or wrong, you can walk away with that with love in your heart and neutrality and still act respectfully to him and still see and perceive him as a warrior king. And this is the thing when we talk about evoking the greatness in men, and my mind is non-linear, so it's going across the many topics that we're going to be discussing in Cherished. So one of them is like, how do we evoke the greatness in men? And I'll give you a tip and hint here. It's like, see every man as the king. See every man as the king. And when you have this perception of men, you act with inherent respect towards them. And that sometimes the way you respect a man may actually feel harsh when we don't get it. And I'll go into that nuanced in Cherish. So I just wanted to talk about submission and all of these things today. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. I am a big, big advocate of understanding the difference in feminine fawning, in premature devotion, and actually understanding the true texture of holy submission. And I am of the big belief that until you can stand in your rightful no, until you are unafraid of being rejected and you already rest in the knowing that you are chosen, cherished, and loved by God, then it is impossible to come into the true holy act of submission because it will always be laced with a texture of fawning, okay? I would love to know if you received any value out of this. Please let me know in the comments below if you can identify with that adaptive mechanism of the strong woman. I hear and I see you, sister. You are one of the favorite women that I love to work with and support. So please walk alongside us in Cherished, or there is also details if you want to work closer together in one-to-one support. Yeah, give this video a like, a subscribe, and share it with any woman who needs to hear this message. Until next time, beauty.